Hey, happy hump day, everybody. It is Wednesday. Does anybody call it hump day still, or is that done?
It's done now.
I think we should bring it back. Well, anyway, it's hump day, and it is Adam, David, Heath talking trade here. We'll look at the most traded players. It's Worryometer Wednesday, which, of course, we can turn into trade talk. We're going to put some players on the Worryometer. Heath, you getting ready for Halloween, worry season, spooky season? Ready?
Yeah.
The Grinch who stole Halloween. Heath hates Halloween, for those of you who don't know. Turns off his lights at his house. Doesn't want anybody bothering him.
It is something that somebody brought up last year. It's funny because I'm not a big fan of Halloween. But every year there's one of us who ends up dressed up in a costume on social media. And it's me.
That was me last year. Well, I did it on the show, remember? I was Ace Ventura.
No, I don't remember that.
Oh,
I must have been off
that was last year, or was that like last 6 years ago?
25 years ago. All right, anyway, let's get into the show here. We're going to talk about guys like Kyler Murray, Tom Brady. We're going to talk about Aaron Jones, J.K. Dobbins, Dalton Schultz, Joe Mixon. We're going to look at the Thursday night game, which is pretty interesting. You know, what do you do with Eno Benjamin? How much do we trust Chris Olave and DeAndre Hopkins? Hopkins' first game of the season. Olave first game coming back after missing week 6 with a concussion, and so on and so forth. But of course, I have a waiver wire oversight. Should have mentioned this on yesterday's show. He was 80% rostered yesterday. He's still 80% rostered. Just go ahead and check your league for Daniel Carlson, kicker for the Las Vegas Raiders. He has been the best kicker by far. You don't have to drop, Harrison Butker if you picked him up, or any of the Justin Tucker. But if you just been streaming kickers, take a look, see if Daniel Carlson's available.
If you can't believe up Carlson, you don't have to make a kicker move the rest of the year.
Right. Exactly.
That's the best case for ever picking up a kicker.
He's really good.
Think about the position again. He has. This is my problem with kickers, and so I'm going to say it because he has been very good.
Yeah.
I do not believe that implies that he will be very good rest of season. We all think that Derek Carr is going to have better than a 4.3% touchdown rate, which he has this year, which he had for his career. We all think that Devontae Adams is going to mean that Derek Carr throws more touchdowns.
Yeah, well, Carlson's made all 4 of his attempts from 50-plus yards. So you know what? Just go ahead and get him, okay? I mean, at least you can tell people that they should get him. He should be one of the most rostered kickers. But, I think you agree on that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah,
right. I mean, that's not controversial.
We don't generally. Go ahead.
All right. Favorite buy low. Before we're just gonna give me one buy low, one sell high if you could. Who wants to go first?
I'll go. Ezekiel Elliott.
Oh.
He sneaks in.
Go on.
He's like RB 38 on the season now. He is coming off of his best game, and so it might seem like a sell high. But he gets the Lions, the Bears, and the Packers in his next 3 games. There's a bye week in between there. I think there's a chance over the next 3 weeks, maybe even over the next month, that Zeke is a top 20 running back with Dak coming back and improving this offense. And then maybe you do the old buy low, sell high. And don't count on him making it to the end of the year or being really good at the end of the year. But I would like to have Zeke on my roster for the next month.
He would be my plan B if I can't acquire my plan A buy low. And my plan A buy low at running back is Aaron Jones, who hasn't been quite productive over his past couple of games, but I think he's the best running back that Green Bay's got. I think they need to get him more involved. Aaron Rodgers has said as much, and the coaching staff has been talking now for 2 weeks about getting the run game going. They've got the Commanders this week. It's not the easiest matchup in the world. You think the Commanders have a bad defense, but they've been pretty good against the run. They did allow that long run to Khalil Herbert last week, but that was really it. They did a great job in short yardage. But I think Aaron Jones is in a great spot where he can continue to be top 15 and maybe in many rushing efficiency rankings, but also he's top 15 in a lot of receiving efficiency rankings. And people who have him in your leagues are probably tired of dealing with the low production through most of the year. I think you go after Jones first, and you'll have to pay more for Jones than you will for Zeke. But if you miss on Jones, go after Zeke and see if Zeke can help you notch a couple of wins in October, November.
All right, I'm gonna give you some Azer stats here on Aaron Jones. I can cue up the music here, but just taking a look at his touches over the last 4 seasons. And remember, in 2019 and 2020, he was a top 5 running back. Last year, he was top 12, I believe. But
always crazy, but always fact. That's just an Azer stat.
All right, here are his touches per game. Aaron Jones' touches per game last 4 seasons, including 2022. In 2019, 17.9 touches per game. 2020, 17.8 touches per game. 2021 pre-injury. Now, here's where it gets Azer statty. Each of the last 2 years, 2021 and now 2022, he had just the Packers had a terrible week 1 where everything was completely out of whack. So I even try to make this even more generous for Aaron Jones. I took out week 1 of 2021 and I took out week 1 of 2022 where he had 5 carries, something like that in both games. Just total weird game script, not what you should expect. So 2021 pre-injury and removing game 1 and the game he got hurt.
But that's just an Azer stat.
16.8 touches per game. So that's 1 fewer than what we saw in 2019 and 2020. Then he comes back from the injury. He plays that first game against the Rams. He's totally not healthy. He looks like crap. I took that game out of it. The last 4 games after coming back from the injury, 13.3 touches per game. So far this year, removing week 1. So I'm even making this a better stat for Aaron Jones. 15.8 touches per game. That's 2 fewer per game than what he averaged in 2019 and 2020. Does he need to get more touches? Yes. And will he get more touches? Because Heath, you thought, and a lot of people thought, hey, it looked like in week 5 that they were kind of maybe moving away from A.J. Dillon and giving more share to Aaron Jones. And then what happens in week 6? A.J. Dillon, I think he had more carries than Aaron Jones. It was close anyway.
More carries and more targets, and he was more efficient in the running game. Aaron Jones was awful last week in terms of rushing efficiency, and A.J. Dillon, for like the second time all year, averaged better than 4 yards per carry. This all comes down, for me at least, to one thing, and it's the catches. Somehow, some way, Davante Adams gets traded, and Aaron Jones is averaging his fewest catches per game in the last 4 seasons. It makes as much as I loved Aaron Jones, everybody thought Davante Adams leaving means more targets and more catches for Aaron Jones. And so far this season, Davante Adams leaving has meant fewer catches and fewer targets and really a larger share of the receiving work for A.J. Dillon. A.J. Dillon was not having these 4-catch games with Aaron Jones on the field last year. It's already happened twice this season. Yeah. It's an absolute disaster so far. And I hope that it will get better. That he's their second best offensive player, and the way Aaron Rodgers has played this year, he might be their best offensive player. Mm-hmm. But it's hard to say it's going to happen when the last 3 weeks have gone 19 touches, 15 touches, 12 touches.
Yeah. And you know what? The one thing about the catches, I mentioned this on Monday, he's at the 7th most routes run among running backs. His target per route run is way down. So the role, I hate using that word. I use it all the time. We use it all the time, but his role is the same. He's still running a ton of routes. They're just not throwing to him, but that should give you some hope. That could easily change. It's not like he doesn't have the opportunities. It's just not getting. I
never know. And then we did this with Devin Singletary for 2.5 years now. Like Devin Singletary is always amongst the league leaders in routes run, or has been recently, right? Because Josh Allen's
leading the NFL.
Josh Allen's throwing 50 passes, and Devin Singletary's in there, so he runs a route. But 80% of the games, Josh Allen never even considers throwing Devin Singletary. So what is the value of those routes?
That's kind of what's happening in Green Bay, is that Rodgers is trying to get things clicking with his receivers. He's got it down with Lazard mostly, and last week looked really good with Tonyan, especially once Cobb went out. I think Tonyan could end up being a regular target getter in that offense. But I'm just going to go back to what Rodgers said about getting Jones more involved. The Packers know that he's a good pass catcher. He had a 22-yard run called back last week, did he not?
Yes. I don't know.
So,
but yeah.
So I'm not really concerned about what happened last week. What I am hopeful for is that they say, all right, A.J. Dillon has a role, but it's got to shrink. And they go back to leaning on Aaron Jones a little bit more. And I think that that's something that we could reasonably hope for given how efficient he's been over the balance of the season and how less efficient Dylan's been over the balance of the season.
Well, here, I think one thing to consider if you're buying low on Aaron Jones, and man, I hope that he's the best buy low candidate ever, because I would like for him to be a top 12 running back rest of season. Are you still good with buying low if he's bad the next 2 weeks? I think you should be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But
I'm just buying lower.
It's at Washington and it's at Buffalo.
But yeah, if he's involved in the passing game, that kind of makes him much more bust proof. But he's not. But he hasn't been.
Well, I mean, he has been. He's had 3 catches in every game but 1.
Yeah,
That's a 50 catch pace. It's just he's not had enough of a role, and he's really, I mean, it's his lowest yards per target in a full season he's ever played. So he's not been particularly efficient on those targets either.
2 touchdowns this year for a guy who scores a lot of touchdowns. All right, that's Aaron Jones. So it sounds like Dave is more willing to buy low on Aaron Jones. You guys both like the idea of buying low on Ezekiel Elliott. The Fantasy Football Today DFS podcast. You should definitely listen to that one. Great DFS advice from Sia Najad and Mike McClure. And it streams live at youtube.com/fantasyfootballtoday. So do all of our podcasts, by the way. If you ever want to see us, you can watch us live or you can watch us on demand, youtube.com/fantasyfootballtoday. But FFT DFS is Tuesdays at 6 p.m. Eastern and Thursdays at 5 p.m. Eastern, again with Sia Najad and Mike McClure. And if you can't catch it live, just subscribe to the podcast. All right, Dave, who are we selling high on?
The Cardinals' offense has been awful this year. They've been below average in offensive EPA, just below league average with 19 points per game, 10th worst in red zone touchdown rate. And having DeAndre Hopkins come back is going to solve all those problems. I'm not buying it. I've been trying. I stashed Hopkins in a handful of leagues. I wasn't drafting him particularly early because I didn't want to deal with waiting for him. But in a few leagues, I did get him because the value was too good on draft day. And now here he is coming back. If I'm good at wide receiver and I've got Hopkins on my bench, I'm trying to flip him now because I think the public perception on DeAndre Hopkins is that he's still among the most elite receivers in fantasy football. And I don't think that that's the case. I don't think that was the case last year. Kyler's been playing very erratically. The offensive line is continuing to break down. They just traded for Robbie Anderson. He'll take work away. I think Ertz lives and stays on in this offense and has a significant role from game to game. I'm trying to sell high on DeAndre Hopkins. Not saying that you should just get rid of him and get whatever you can for him. But the whole fact that they're talking about a snap count after he's been gone for the first 6 games of the season makes me wonder just how good a shape could he possibly be in. So I'm shopping him around, and it just so happens to be that there's a team in every league that lost Marquise Brown last week. Yeah. They could use DeAndre Hopkins. Offer him up.
Okay. Would you rather have rest of season DeAndre Hopkins or Jalen Waddle?
Waddle.
Heath?
Yeah, I think I'd still rather have Waddle. I was surprised with how high Hopkins came out in my projections for this week, and I may have to lower it a little bit. I know he said that he does not want a snap count. He's ready to play all of the snaps, so it will be interesting to see who wins that battle. But as far as will he fix the entire Arizona offense, the difference between Kyler Murray with DeAndre Hopkins on the field and Kyler Murray without DeAndre Hopkins on the field is the difference between a good quarterback and a bad NFL quarterback. It's been a massive difference in his play with Hopkins. So he might fix everything, just his presence. But I mostly agree with Dave. I don't think he's probably the same guy. He didn't earn the same target share last year. We'll see.
Do you have the breakdown by year of how Kyler was with and without DeAndre Hopkins?
Yes. Well, I mean, it would take me a few minutes.
It's going to take a lot of Azer statting because
I can
he's
just
got to rule out this game and that game, right?
I can just tell you that he was.
I think I could do it
before the Hopkins injury. He was, I want to say, a top 3 quarterback last year, and then the year before that, Hopkins played the whole year, and Kyler was the number 1 quarterback in fantasy until he hurt his shoulder. So it wasn't necessarily about DeAndre Hopkins, but we have seen basically a half a season, 2 years in a row, where Kyler Murray has been a truly elite quarterback. The first year, it was the shoulder injury. The second year, it was the Hopkins absence. But I really want to move on, guys. We have a lot to get to today. So, Heath, who's your buy low? Who's your sell high? Oh, wait. Real quick, Hopkins or Pittman rest of season?
Pittman and PPR. Pittman all the way around.
Zeke or Hopkins?
I think you can get more in trade for Hopkins, certainly in PPR right now, than Zeke.
That's just entirely dependent on whether I need a running back or wide receiver.
Hopkins or Ken Walker?
Walker.
Yeah.
All right, Heath, who's your favorite sell high?
I really struggle to find one. But I think it's hard to say this. It's kind of like the Ezekiel Elliott one, like he's coming off his best game and I'm saying buy low based on what he's been so far. But I think Cortland Sutton, if anybody thinks he is a borderline number one wide receiver, like we all had him ranked last week, like he's been so far this season, the injuries are piling up for Russell Wilson. We've seen the target share was more targets for Jerry Jeudy last week. I just don't know for sure if they're going to get this thing fixed in Denver. And I don't know for sure still that Cortland Sutton's going to be the best Broncos wide receiver every week.
Cortland Sutton went from the number 15 wide receiver per game in the first 5 weeks of the season to number 28 after week 6 when he had 2 catches for 14 yards on 3 targets.
And I'd also, like, if somebody thinks the last 2 weeks means this is what you're going to get from Gabe Davis every week, you should definitely be selling high on him too.
All right. News and notes. Deshaun Watson remains on track to return from his suspension, which would mean a week 13 return. Russell Wilson may not play this week. He's got a hamstring injury. He's pretty beat up. They get the Jets this week. Andy Dalton was limited in practice with a back injury. We're ranking him as if he will start on Thursday at Arizona. And Kenny Pickett, Mike Tomlin said Kenny Pickett will start if he clears the concussion protocol. They're at Miami on Sunday night. It has been difficult with the new rules for players to clear the concussion protocol within a week. Running back news, Nathaniel Hackett said that Melvin Gordon didn't do anything wrong. Who leads the Broncos in carries this week against the Jets? What's your best bet?
Latavius Murray.
This week, I don't think there's any reason to think anything. There's like Latavius Murray. And Cecil Lammy was saying before the game that he thought that Murray would get a shot to do it. So,
yeah, I should have brought this up yesterday, but because I was probably a little more enthused about adding Murray. Do you think, how realistic is it that the Broncos cut or trade Melvin Gordon?
He's on a 1-year deal, right?
I think so. I mean, they could get rid of him. I don't know that they want to, but if he's disgruntled, is it out of the question that they move on from him?
I would say it's more likely he's cut or traded than leads the team in carries next week.
Okay.
But I don't know.
He is on a 1-year deal.
Right.
Very little. It's a couple $1 million in dead money if they move on from him.
But a third of that's
money now.
A third of that's already gone though.
Yeah.
Right?
Actually, they save a little bit if they trade him.
Hey.
But who's looking for a 29-year-old running back?
Rams?
Who
So
else?
I don't know.
That kind of makes sense.
Yeah. All right. James Conner missed practice. He's probably not going to play. Deshaun Jackson signed with the Ravens. Do you care?
I'm happy for him.
Oh, are
But
you?
no, I don't care.
That's great. I'm not happy.
Yeah,
for it.
I think that's I'm happy for Lamar. There's probably going to be one game where Deshaun Jackson scores 2 touchdowns and has 170 yards receiving.
Chris Olave says he plans on playing, but Mike Thomas and Jarvis Landry are not expected to play. Keenan Allen is moving in the right direction. They have Seattle this week. They're hoping he can practice in full this week. Some trade notes from ESPN's Jeremy Fowler. Christian McCaffrey is kind of being loosely linked, I guess, to the Rams and the 49ers. Teams are keeping an eye on Kadarius Toney, and teams have inquired about Kendrick Bourne of the Patriots. And Miami could be willing to listen to offers for Mike Gesicki. Okay, some defense news. Marshawn Lattimore likely out for tomorrow's game. Logan Ryan, Tampa Bay starting safety, he's on IR with a fractured foot. They were already without 2 other defensive backs last week, Sean Murphy-Bunting and safety Mike Edwards. We'll see if they come back at Carolina. Dustin Hopkins, great game. Walk-off kick for the Chargers in week 6. He is now out 2 to 4 weeks with a hamstring strain. Indianapolis owner Jim Irsay said there's consideration for removing Washington owner Dan Snyder. This could get messy. And we will have a Black Friday NFL game on Amazon Prime next season. So the Friday after Thanksgiving, there will be an afternoon football game, and it'll be half off. All right, let's do the worryometer here. Thank you, Dave. Worryometer for Kyler Murray, 0 to 10. 0 is not worried at all. He's fine. 10 is, wow, this is a problem.
5.
3, but if it's bad this week, I will escalate that to a 7.
Okay. Well, the Saints defense has been just pitiful lately. They can't tackle anyone. Let's hope that somehow the Cardinals can take advantage.
And this should maybe be a Cliff Kingsbury one. Like, how worried are we about Cliff Kingsbury? Because the offense just does not look very good. And I don't think that Marquise Brown, Zach Ertz, and Rondale Moore is a bad set of weaponry. So it's hopefully DeAndre Hopkins unlocks something.
Right. I don't think Hopkins, Robbie, Rondale, and Ertz is a bad set either,
That's a good
especially
one.
if you don't have a run game. But they're going to have problems with their offensive line, especially against the Saints, who've started to put the pressure on more game after game after game. They've been better at getting to the quarterback. This is going to be a challenge for Kyler on Thursday. I'm still calling him a starter, and I'm kind of excited to just see what we get out of Hopkins. I've got him ranked as a top 24 receiver this week. Rondale's a good flex.
Very encouraged.
Thursday night preview right now.
No, not yet.
No,
Sing the song.
if I've got Kyler, I'm not prioritizing carrying a second quarterback. And I believe they have a late bye anyway, so you could wait a little while on that.
All right, how about Tom Brady? He is the number 15 QB per game in 4-point, number 16 per game in 6-point per passing touchdown leagues. Tom Brady, very low touchdown rate. And I feel like that's the case for most of the guys on the worryometer, Heath. And did you know, by the way, that Tampa Bay allows the fewest pressures? They have the lowest pressure rate allowed. It's not because their line is so great. It's because Tom Brady gets rid of the ball quicker than every quarterback. But that's been the case all 3 years in Tampa Bay. He's been top 4 in quickest release, basically. He's been among the fastest to get rid of the ball. But, yeah, is it just touchdowns? What's your worryometer? Heath, you can start on Tom Brady, 0 to 10.
It might be more of like a 6. 0 to 10. The intended air yards per pass attempt is the lowest it's been since he's been in Tampa Bay. It's actually the lowest it's been in the last 5 years, but it's closer to what he did in New England than what he's done in Tampa Bay. So I think that there's a reason to believe, like, it's not just the touchdown rate with him. His yards per pass attempt at 6.7 or 6.7 is the lowest it's been since he's been in Tampa Bay. And he's 45 years old. Like, there's a chance that there's just some decrease, and he's got a lot going on too. So I'm slight. That wasn't a joke at all.
Oh, I thought you meant the wedding stuff. Yeah, the personal. You're right. He's got a lot going on in his personal life. Sorry. Didn't mean to laugh at that.
So I'm slightly concerned. More concerned than I am with Kyler.
6 is more than slightly. All right, Dave. Where are you? 0 to 10.
I'll put him at the same spot as I have Kyler, so 5. I was hoping that the offensive line would get itself worked out, and it hasn't quite happened yet. And Brady is still he really nailed it. Just getting rid of the ball quickly. The air yards aren't there. He's not throwing deep as much. It's a little problematic. He doesn't have Antonio Brown screeching downfield like he did in the past, and I feel like they need that component to their offense. They need somebody who can threaten downfield, and that might change the way that defenses play them a little bit. Evans is the only guy that's really doing that right now.
All right, the counter.
He averaged 7.5 yards per pass attempt combined his first 2 years in Tampa Bay. He has averaged better than 7.5 yards per pass attempt, or 7.5, once. That was week 1.
Okay, but here's the counter. He's had very few, he has not had a lot of Evans and Godwin out there. And they are now throwing 42, 52, 52, and 40 times in the last 4 games.
Oh, thank goodness. I mean, that gives him a shot at 250 yards every week.
Because
otherwise, I don't think
he's been over that in 3 of those 4 games: 271, 385, 351, and 243. Mm-hmm. It just has a really, really low touchdown rate. And every year he's 43. He's 44. How many times has Tom Brady been counted out? I'm surprised. I'm surprised you guys are asking. I thought it was going to be like a 2. I guess I see all your points.
He's another one of those quarterbacks that you've got him on your team. You might not be happy with what he's giving you. What are your options? Who's on the way? Is Matt Ryan coming to rescue you this week?
Right.
You can do it if you want to. Same thing with Garoppolo. Do they have more upside than Tom Brady? I think Ryan might. Maybe the case could be made for Garoppolo. He's playing Carolina this week. If they can run the ball, this is the other thing is that, and this is why he's throwing so much too. They can't run the ball that well. Again, the offensive line isn't that great. Leonard Fournette, not exactly the pitcher of explosiveness. And so there, as long as this continues to be the case, Brady should be able to compile solid to good fantasy numbers. Will he have a lot of 300-yard and 3 and 4 touchdown games? Probably not.
But for guys who were drafted, we were ranking them as top 6 quarterbacks. It's not the benchometer. It's like I'm worried neither of them are going to live up to what I paid for them.
I guess I'm a little worried because he doesn't have Gronk, he doesn't have Antonio Brown, but we did see a few games last year where it was just Godwin and Evans. I think there were 3 games, and Brady scored more than 30 points in 2 of them. I see a ton of pass attempts. I see some almost touchdowns. He had some bad luck a couple weeks ago. Yeah, I don't know. I guess I'm less worried, but okay. It's all right. I was going to put Aaron Jones on there, but we already talked about him. So here's one thing I'm definitely not worried about, and that is the way I look in my Indochino suit. It is a thing of beauty. If you want an Indochino suit, if you want anything from Indochino, all the menswear that they have, great shirts, sweaters, just a lot of great stuff, menswear that you should be really checking out. Just go to Indochino.com. That's INDOCHINO.com and use the code FFT for $50 off any purchase of $399 or more. And I've talked to people who pay $800, $1,000 for a custom suit. You don't even have to approach that at Indochino.com. You can shop their made-for-you suits starting at just $449. Premium fitted shirts starting at just $89. You can fine-tune every detail. If you don't have a custom suit, you probably don't know what you're missing. I didn't know what I was missing until I got a suit from Indochino, and it is by far my best suit. I wear it whenever I can. I get compliments a lot. I enjoy wearing it. It's not just, I didn't have to take it to the tailor. I mean, you buy something cheaper, and then you have to take it to the tailor, and all of a sudden, you're paying more money, and it's not nearly as good. So just do it the right way and go to Indochino. You're going to absolutely love your suit. Again, design your perfect suit with Indochino. Get $50 off any purchase of $399 or more and use the promo code FFT at Indochino.com. That's INDOCHINO.com. Promo code is FFT for Indochino. Back to the Worryometer. Who's next? Joe Mixon is next. He is number 22 per game in non-PPR, number 17 per game in full PPR. Joe Mixon, he doesn't play much on third down, but he does catch a lot of passes. He also has, 14 or fewer carries in 3 of the last 4 games. Kind of sneaky there. 0 to 10, Dave, on Joe Mixon.
0. He's on my team. He's got good upside every single week, pretty much regardless of the matchup. There's nothing to sweat with Joe Mixon.
Heath?
Yeah, we are using a different scale, but I will say 3, maybe 4.
Okay.
Like I'm not benching
which scale
Joe
are you
Mixon,
using?
How worried am I that he is not going to deliver on cost?
Okay.
Like be a disappointment this year. Like he has been so far.
You always have to define the scales.
What would you like that? What would you like? Like what am I doing wrong here? 10?
I think just a general. I mean, that's fine. No, that's fine. That's just like a general. Hey, are you worried about this guy? I think you may be overthinking it a little bit, Heath. I just want you to roll with the punches. He's
RB22 on the year. We drafted him as RB5.
He's RB17 in PPR.
It's worrying.
Yeah, I mean, his inefficiency has been very worrying. He is averaging 5.6 yards per carry in each of his last 2 games, so hopefully that continues. Doesn't sound like you're terribly worried about him. One thing I will point out, his playoff schedule, Joe Mixon's playoff schedule, Bucks, Patriots, Bills, and that is number 1, number 3, and number 8 against running backs so far. We can worry about that maybe a little later in the year. Would you rather have Mixon or Swift?
Mixon, because we don't know exactly. We think Swift is coming back this week. We don't know how long he'll last.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd say Mixon.
All right. Worryometer on Cortland Sutton. Talked about him a little bit earlier, so we can go quickly here. Like I said, he was 15th per game before week 6, and now he's 28th. But he's still 16th in targets among wide receivers. I don't know. Worryometer on Sutton.
Would you mind if I made one last quick point on Mixon?
Go for it.
Heath, correct me if I'm wrong. Yards before contact per rush. That's indicative of a lot of things, but certainly a lot of how the offensive line is playing and getting off the snap and creating a push for their running back. Would you agree that that's part of it? Is that a yes?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
His yards before contact per rush, Mixon's, has gone up over the past 2 games.
Yeah.
3.07 2 weeks ago, 2.25 last week. It's against the Ravens and the Saints. Those are not slouchy defenses against the run.
Yeah, that's good stuff. All right, Cortland Sutton, 0 to 10.
I'm going to try using Heath's scale. And I'm going to put it at 4 if Russell Wilson's healthy, 7 if Russell Wilson is out for an extended period of time.
Yeah, I'll split the difference, 5 or 6.
Okay. Would you rather have Cortland Sutton or DeAndre Hopkins?
Hopkins.
All right. So again, if Russell Wilson is okay and he's going to play, I'd rather have Sutton. If he's going to miss 4 weeks because he's got a problem with his hamstring, then I'd rather have Nuke.
Right, but you don't know. So that's part
I
of the
don't know.
value.
So I guess I'd lean towards Sutton because I don't know.
I'd lean toward Hopkins because I'm worried about Russell Wilson. But yeah, that's probably what it comes down to. Just how worried are you about Russell Wilson?
No, I'm worried about Russell Wilson even when he's healthy.
How worried are you about him playing? Because yes,
right.
If he's playing,
is Russell okay? This is a fair question. If Russell who's better right now, Russell Wilson, given how he's played this year, or Brett Rippon?
Russell Wilson.
Wilson.
I think so too, but I think it just needed to be asked. I also want to point out that before last week, Cortland Sutton had a 28% target share. He had 417 yards. He had a 63% catch rate, 46 targets in 5 games. It's got to be 9 targets a game.
Yeah.
I'm banking on that guy coming back and not what we saw in week 6 being the case the rest of the season.
Yeah, he was on pace before week 6. Sutton was on pace for 99 catches, over 1,400 yards, only 3 touchdowns on 156 targets. All right. DK.
Like if we get word, I'm sorry, Adam, if we get word late this week that Russ is fine, I'll disagree with Heath and say that Cortland is a buy low. But low, try and take advantage of this bad game.
DK Metcalf, 0 to 10.
5, because he's kind of been what he was drafted to be with Geno Smith playing out of his mind.
And now we don't know if
what if Geno Smith's just like, I don't think Geno Smith's going to go back to being awful. He's going to be awful the rest of the way. But what if he's just an average quarterback the rest of the way?
Mm-hmm.
How much? Like, what is DK Metcalf? Considering that it seems like he's just slightly, like he's at the very least he is not clearly ahead of Tyler Lockett.
I don't think he is, and I think you can make the case that he's not. I also am a little bit concerned that they just won a game, and after the game, Pete Carroll said, yes, this is how I want to win games. Running the ball, great defense, not throwing like crazy. This is the Pete Carroll way. This is why Russ got out of Seattle. And if Kenneth Walker is going to continue to be an awesome rushing presence, and I think he will, it's going to take pass attempts out of Geno Smith's pocket. That takes targets away from DK and Tyler Lockett. I think he's on the money, if 5, if not a 6, for DK Metcalf.
Sutton or Metcalf?
Sutton, if Russ is okay.
Yep.
Okay, how about Metcalf or...
But I think you can get more in trade for Metcalf right now than you can for Sutton.
Would you rather have Metcalf or Damian Pierce?
Pierce.
Brandon Cooks?
Metcalf.
Flip a coin.
You love Brandon Cooks. I think he's a terrific buy low too, but I would still rather have DK.
Kyle Pitts.
I don't think either one of them are top 24 wide receivers.
I think they both are.
Kyle Pitts, 0 to 10.
Or I think they both will be.
10.
9.
If anybody, like, and I wrote this in the tight end preview this week, if anybody in your league thinks that touchdown down means Kyle Pitts is back, I would trade him for basically a starter at any position. Their pass volume is so low. He's not the number one option on his team. He was third on targets behind Olamide Zaccheaus, who is, by the way, we should give him a little bit of credit, having a remarkable year in terms of efficiency. He won't keep it up, but it's incredible what he's done so far. It's one of the lowest pass volume offenses in the NFL. He's not the number one offense, and he's not connecting with Marcus Mariota. I don't know if this is because of coverage or because of a lack of chemistry with those two, but Mariota's been better throwing to just about everybody besides Kyle Pitts.
Yeah, he throws to Drake London a lot more than he throws to Kyle Pitts, and Kyle Pitts is lining up in line a lot more this year than he was last year. So he's lining up in the slot and out wide less frequently than he was. And can they continue throwing this infrequently? Probably not. But look at their schedule. I mean, they do have Cincinnati this week, then the Chargers, Carolina twice, the Bears, Washington, Pittsburgh. They got a lot of games that they could win or at least be very competitive, and they're competitive every week.
And that's the thing, is like every week, not every week, but that's a bit of an exaggeration, but they are 8 to 10 point underdogs against playoff teams. And they're either winning or even in the second half, it's a 2-score game in the second half, and they run the ball 14 times to close it to a 1-score game.
They haven't lost the game yet this year by more than 6 points, I think. They are
one
feisty.
thing I want to check out with them is A.J. Terrell, because Casey Hayward is on IR, right?
Casey Hayward's out for a while. I think Terrell's going to be okay, and I think Oliver's going to be okay. So they may – don't quote me on that. They start practicing on Wednesday. We could have an update by Friday. On
we got to get going. I'm sorry, Dave. We got to get going here on the Worryometer so we can preview the game. And
he ran 2 routes in the red zone last week. You got very lucky with Kyle Pitts.
J.K. Dobbins, I thought you were going to say he ran 2 routes last week. J.K. Dobbins, 0 to 10, Worryometer.
6.
8. I don't like the fact there's no progress being made. It's just like he may not be healthy all year. I hope he is, but there's no reason to be encouraged right now.
No, we were told though, expect a slow first half of the year for J.K. Dobbins, and that by the second half of the year, he would get going a little bit more. I'm holding out hope that that's the case.
If there's another problem that I see here, this is where Baltimore has ranked in running back carries the last 4 seasons. 7th, 13th, 30th, and now 31st. And if he's splitting with Gus Edwards, maybe Kenyon Drake is still involved. They just throw the ball more than they used to, and they run the ball with running backs less frequently, much less frequently than they used to. I don't know how much that changes.
I don't know how much that is related to their confidence in their running backs.
Yeah,
right now, present day confidence.
That offense that we saw.
And last year confidence too. Last year they're running Devonta Freeman and Latavius Murray out there. So
yes.
I expect, and this could be wrong, if J.K. Dobbins gets back to 100%, you will see their running back carries increase in the second half of the season.
Agreed.
Yeah, I'm not sure it's going to get back up to 7th or maybe 13th is realistic.
Could be league average.
Yeah. Okay, let's take a break here, and when we come back, we'll talk about New Orleans at Arizona. We'll look at the most traded lists. We'll try to answer some of your emails. I do want to talk about Josh Jacobs and Christian Kirk and a few other players that I think are pretty interesting right now. But this is a big game we're going to talk about this for fantasy purposes. So we'll be right back on Fantasy Football Today. Dave, what's going on Thursday night?
Nah.
New Orleans is at Arizona. That's what's going on. Okay, how do you guys feel about Chris Olave? And then who's your favorite wide receiver in the game? You like Olave or Hopkins?
I like Hopkins over Olave. I like fresh legs against the Saints defense that doesn't have Marshawn Lattimore, and probably more targets for Hopkins than for Olave. And Adam, you deserve all the credit in the world for sniffing out Arizona and how good they've been against the pass. I took a look at what they did defensively last week because they shut down Metcalf and Lockett last week. And what they basically do is they rush 4 defensive players, and then their other 7 defenders all fall back into coverage, like anywhere from 7 to 20 yards downfield. They really deter taking away the big play. It's showing up in the stats. It's pretty much what they do. And the Seahawks countered with a bunch of short passes. And that's zone defense in a nutshell. And I actually thought that Arizona's pass rush was pretty good last week. They can do the exact same thing this week and really limit Chris Olave, who, for all the excitement he's delivered, does have just 4 catches in his last 2 games.
He did leave both briefly with injuries, but he didn't miss a ton of time. But he did miss time.
The second game more so than, or the most recent game more so than week 4.
It is incredible that he still leads the NFL in air yards.
Yeah.
Well, he had a 300-yard air game.
But that's what concerns me, Heath. And the thing is, I have Olave in 2 leagues, and I'm not even considering sitting him. I just think he's been way too good. He makes contested catches. He looks like a freaking stud. So maybe he can beat this matchup, but they are arguably the best against number 1 wide receivers. I think Devontae Adams had 12 yards against them. And they are arguably the best at limiting the deep ball. This is exactly this is the worst matchup, I think, on paper for Chris Olave.
It is, especially because Michael Thomas isn't there. Like, if Thomas was there, you could argue maybe they'll treat Thomas like the number 1 wide receiver, and Olave is going to have a monster game because some number 2 wide receivers have had decent days against them.
Yeah, but it's the air yards too. I mean, it's the fact that what he does well, you win downfield, is exactly what Arizona takes away very successfully.
How many receivers have had 90 yards against Arizona this year?
I'm going to say 0. Yeah, 0.
How many? It is 0. How many have had 90 yards against them in the last 2 seasons, this season and last season?
No, definitely a handful. 5.
Well, how many is a handful?
5, 6.
You got it, 6.
The 2 players who had the best games against them this year were Juju and Devontae Smith. Juju actually had kind of a high ADOT in week 1. Devontae Smith did not. So it's a lot of yak. That's what they do. They give up yak. They don't give up air yards. But again, so we've laid out this case against Olave, but like I said, I can't get him out of my lineup, especially with those 4 teams on bye this week. Where do you guys have him ranked?
Top 24, but just inside.
I think 20 or 21 is where he is. Like, there are some guys who I probably am not brave enough to start over him, but I have ranked in the same range. Alan Lazard, I might start Lazard over him. I've got Rondale Moore in full PPR back-to-back with him. Josh Reynolds is right in that range.
Okay.
I have Lazard over him by 1 spot.
So let's talk. All right, Kamara's the easy call. Obviously, you're starting him. If you took Eno Benjamin, and the Saints' run defense is not what it's been in the previous 4 years, basically. You took Eno Benjamin, DeAndre Hopkins, Rondale Moore, and Chris Olave. How would you rank them in PPR?
I would go Hopkins, Olave, Rondale, Eno.
Right now, I have it Hopkins, Eno, Rondale, Olave.
I'm out on Eno. He's a flex at best.
Yeah, see, that's it. I understand the efficiency was awful last week, but assuming that Connor and Williams are both out, he got 18 touches. I don't think his efficiency is going to be as bad as it was last week. It hasn't been all year, so I will just bet on the touches.
Yeah, it was right. 15 carries, 3 catches against a terrible run defense last week. But again, Saints' run defense has been bad. They're giving up 4.64 yards per carry to running backs. They do allow the fewest receiving yards per game to running backs.
Yeah, that's part of the reason why I'm out on it.
But the team that allows the most receiving yards to running backs, he wasn't that good against. Maybe it'll just be a flip.
No, Seattle's got a lot better in that. The Chiefs are the new Seattle through 6 games anyway. But he had 3 for 28. Like, you'll take 3 for 28 receiving. That's pretty damn good. Pretty damn solid anyway. Okay, so would you start Eno Benjamin or Aaron Jones?
Jones.
Jones. Not quite as obviously as Dave, but yes, Jones.
How about Eno Benjamin or Clyde Edwards-Helaire at San Francisco?
Eno.
I believe I have Clyde higher, but that one's going to be closer.
Eno Benjamin or Najee Harris at Miami?
Eno.
I am double checking where I have Najee before I spew Najee over Eno. I have Eno or Najee higher.
Would you start Chris Olave, Rondale Moore, or a Seahawks wide receiver this week?
Seahawks receiver.
Yeah, lock it.
Would you start Chris Olave, Rondo Moore, or Brian Robinson against Green Bay?
Both receivers.
What's the format?
Half PPR.
Olave, Robinson, Rondo.
Okay.
I'm not starting Rondo unless it's full PPR.
And Zach Ertz is a must start. What about Taysom Hill? What about our good friend Taysom Hill? Where do you have him ranked?
Yay, our buddy Taysom Hill, who, roll the dice every week. Touchdown or bust, tight end. That's what he is.
Top 6 in non-PPR, 12 or 13 in full PPR.
I mean, that sounds about right. Cardinals against everybody, it's 4.3 yards per carry this season. Ranked 20th in yards before contact allowed. So there's a chance. There's a chance that Taysom could rip off a couple of decent runs and always a chance that he can score.
I don't really even think that like how other teams have been against the run applies to Taysom Hill.
Me either.
How come?
He's a complete, not completely unique, but it's not like they're handing the ball off to him and have some scheme to hit the certain hole. Like he's running read options and all kinds of things that other teams mostly don't do. It's kind of like Jalen Hurts and the Eagles. Like they can face a good run defense and just gash them because it's a different run offense than those defenses are used to face.
I agree to a point, but I also think that the Saints would be more willing to put Taysom Hill on the field more if it was a favorable matchup. Like if they were going up against a team that you knew, like the Seattle game is an example of that. They took on one of the worst run defenses in the league. Look what Taysom Hill did.
Would you start Taysom Hill in full PPR over any of the following players? George Kittle, Kyle Pitts, TJ Hawkinson.
Nope.
Pitts is the one that's really, really tough. I would probably start Pitts, but in non-PPR, it's
touchdown or
Hill.
bust tight ends.
I am going to have to start him over Dalton Schultz this week, unfortunately, because I just won't know about Dalton Schultz's status by the Thursday night game. But if in a world where Dalton Schultz were completely healthy, even with how bad he's been with Cooper Rush, I would start him over Taysom.
100%.
It's who is more likely to score, Taysom Hill on 3 to 5 carries or Kyle Pitts on 3 to 5 targets?
See, I think Hill will have more than 3 or 5 carries. I think he'll get closer. I think he's had like 9 or 10 touches. But the past couple of games, he had 4 pass attempts last week.
But his history says even if it's the same number of rushes for Hill and targets for Pitts, Hill's way more likely to score.
Yeah, much more. Yeah.
Well, that's why you rank him ahead in non-PPR. I think it's closer in full PPR.
And Kyler Murray is a must-start guy this week. So, DSTs, any interest in a DST?
I don't think so.
Okay. Is that it? I think that's it. I don't think there's
No.
No Traquan Smith. Like, that's it, right? Okay, Dave, do it again.
No.
All right. Let's take a look at the most traded list on CBS Sports in our fantasy leagues here. Najee Harris and Ezekiel Elliott and Jeff Wilson and Jonathan Taylor and Clyde Edwards. Oh, my, they're all running backs. Your most traded players, the top 6 or 7 are all running backs. Najee Harris, Ezekiel Elliott, Jeff Wilson, Jonathan Taylor, Clyde, A.J. Dillon, and Ken Walker, and then it's Kyle Pitts. Would you guys be giving away now or trying to acquire Najee Harris?
I'd be trying to give him away now.
Yes.
How about Ezekiel Elliott? I'd
rather have Zeke than Najee.
How about Jeff Wilson?
Yeah, punt. Elijah Mitchell's going to come back eventually. That'll mess up. Wilson's played well enough to continue having a role in the offense, so he'll still play, but he might be 8 to 10 touches a week.
But and Jamie said this yesterday as well. Like he's eligible. Has there been a report that Elijah Mitchell is?
No, we don't know when it's happening. It still could be another couple of weeks.
Because the original estimate was 10 weeks.
8 to 10. Yep.
You okay?
We're hoping he comes back after the bye week, is what Shanahan said 4 days ago.
That's 3 weeks from now. So that's 2 games, then a bye.
You've got time. You've got time to make a move off of Wilson if you want. And he's also someone How about this? You need a running back. You try to get Aaron Jones, can't get him. You try to get Ezekiel Elliott, can't get him. You go to the person that's got Jeff Wilson and you say, hey, man, Elijah Mitchell's coming back soon. Coach is counting on it. You should probably trade him off your team. Here's a bench player for him. Here's a decent number 3 receiver for him. Try and get him on the cheap that way.
Here's my issue, though. Yeah, he's got the Chiefs this week. I mean, the 49ers defense looked bad last week. Or gave up 28 points to the Falcons.
They were brutal. They were brutal against throws.
They might get
Mariota runs.
They might give up 30 points this week to the Chiefs. That's bad for Jeff Wilson, and he's not catching passes. So, I'm just wondering if we should just trade him because this 49ers defense is not going to allow Jeff Wilson to be.
I don't think you can get anything for Jeff Wilson.
Agreed. I don't think you should expect to get much. Someone who needs a running back will give you something, but it's not going to be great.
All right, let's go quickly on the list here. Jonathan Taylor, give it away now or got to get you into my life?
In my life.
Yeah.
This song, right?
I mean, good luck getting him in your life, though, because the people who've been sitting on him still probably value him as close to the number 1 overall pick in fantasy.
Okay.
Like if we were redrafting today, is he a round 1 pick?
Yes.
Agreed. So
but
you should expect to pay that.
I would rather have Eckler, McCaffrey, Saquon, Kupp, Kelsey. I'm not sure about Andrews. There is some, like we've had, and this is, maybe we're underestimating this. How many times in the past have we looked back in our year-end review and said, well, yeah, but there were those 6 weeks that he was playing through the high ankle sprain where he wasn't very good, about multiple running backs.
If he for sure had a high ankle sprain, then he probably won't play this week because this will be the 3rd week since he had it. And you should expect some serious lack of efficiency from him the rest of the year. Is that what it is? Do we know for sure that that's what it is?
I think they've been guarded.
Okay.
So we don't know. We don't know for sure that it's a high ankle sprain.
So, I you know what? Speaking of high ankle sprains, it's not clear that David Montgomery had one and he only missed 1 game. But I forgot to bring this up. I didn't actually see it, but Schneier brought it up last night on the live stream.
The hot hand report?
That the Bears are going to go hot hand at running back.
Great. I mean, it's great if you've got Khalil Herbert. You can start him when they've got a really easy matchup.
Oh, we're talking trade here. So is now the time to get Khalil Herbert? 79% rostered, by the way.
When will you feel confident starting Herbert when Montgomery is also healthy?
You should have Khalil Herbert rostered. You're not giving up someone you value on your team to acquire him, I don't think.
Yep.
Yeah, no, right, exactly. But he's very cheap right now. He's just viewed as a handcuff. But he might just be better than David Montgomery, and maybe he, by the last 6 weeks of the season or something, is the guy.
It's entirely possible, and we've gone down this path before, comparing Herbert to Montgomery. And I do still feel like he's the better player, but it's not like Montgomery's been a slouch. All right, I know he was on Thursday, but the game before, he was the guy.
Joseph
wants to know running backs who can get the job done.
Joseph wants to know if you would trade Jonathan Taylor for Ezekiel Elliott.
No.
No, what?
No, don't do that. Okay, and that's going to do it for that. Buy, sell, hold is this segment here. We'll go fast. Christian Kirk, buy, sell, hold.
Hold.
Yeah, hold. I might sell off a big game, though.
I sell, hold Josh Jacobs, number 5 running back in fantasy.
Can't buy because his price is through the roof, so hold.
If I can buy for number 2 running back value, I would.
Oh, yes.
Like, he was a low-end number 2 at the beginning of the year, and there are people who have just never really believed in him. So,
yeah, I think Josh McDaniels used to be one of those people, and now he does. If you have Jacobs and you don't have Zamir White, you're hurting yourself. Because I think Zamir White could be pretty good if Jacobs went down. And if you acquire Jacobs, then acquire Zamir White too.
So it sounds like you guys are basically buying the production, maybe not as a top 5 guy, but you're buying this surprise season from Josh Jacobs.
I think he's a top 12 running back. Yeah, I would.
Yep.
Yes, I'd hesitate a little bit on the surprise, but yes.
Yes. I
It's
think he's
not
higher than
ADP.
top 12 too.
He's obviously outperformed ADP.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
I sell hold Lamar Jackson.
Hold if not buy.
Buy.
Buy, sell, hold Travis Etienne.
That's a buy.
Buy.
Would you rather have Etienne or DeAndre Hopkins?
Hopkins.
Hopkins.
Lazard or Etienne?
Etienne.
Lazard.
Dave, you said Etienne?
No, I said Lazard.
Heath, you
I
said
said
Etienne?
Etienne. Yeah.
Okay. Raheem Mostert, buy, sell, hold.
Sell.
So, but you're not going to get anything. I'm taking it
If
back.
I had Raheem Mostert
Hold.
on my bench, I would trade, and like a good stable of running backs, I'd trade him for Khalil Herbert.
Straight up?
You'd get that deal done. Someone would.
I'd
take
rather
that.
have Herbert on my bench than Mostert.
I've got Mostert higher on the trade chart because it's obvious he is a starting running back right now.
Mm-hmm.
But you can see the downside. You know what he is. He's never going to have high value in a trade. If the best you can get for him is Khalil Herbert, man, I'd probably, unless I had Montgomery, I'd probably just hang on to him.
All right, Heath, you ready for your favorite segment?
Yeah.
You know what it is?
No.
This is the segment where Adam didn't have time to put emails in the notes, so he's just going to read them without you having a chance to look at them first, and you're going to have to answer questions.
I hope that you do at least 3 different emails with 17 names that we need to rank rest of season.
I'm going to try not to do any too long didn't reads. This one comes from Zach Graham. Where's Zach Graham from, Dave?
Boston, Massachusetts.
Is this a week I can start both Zeke and Pollard and not feel horrible about it?
No. Zeke, yes. Pollard only as a bye week replacement.
Yeah, it's the closest though. Like I've got them both top 26. So it's not far. This is the best. This is the week that you could feel the best about it.
Are you going to do accents for wherever I pick?
I don't know. From Nick, where's Nick from?
El Paso, Texas.
I don't know how to do that.
Texas accent?
Howdy.
Southern drawl? Howdy.
Not a southern drawl. That's the thing. Like there's subtleties. Nick says howdy. My roster is well. Actually, it doesn't matter what his roster is. He's 5-1. Should he trade Mike Evans for Amon-Ra St. Brown in full PPR? Yeehaw!
Yeehaw! Giddy up, partner.
Am I offending Texas? They're all
Texas is unoffendable.
No. Yeah, they're a confident bunch. They're close in the trade chart to each other. I don't have a problem with it.
I'd prefer ARSB rest of season.
All right, this is from Joseph. I'm in a 10-team PPR league. Should I give up Michael Pittman and get Mike Evans?
You said PPR?
Yeah.
I'd prefer
I'd
Pittman.
rather have Evans. And you know what? I do have Evans higher in the trade chart than Amon-Ra.
This is from Seb. Dear Axton, Maya, Salvador, and Zero. Ugh, no idea. I've been struggling at RB2 all year. I have Saquon Barkley, but RB2 I have A.J. Dillon, Brian Robinson, and Eno Benjamin. Who would you start this week? A.J. Dillon, Brian Robinson, Eno Benjamin.
Robinson.
You know.
What is Borderlands 2? Am I supposed to know what this is? Borderlands 2. It's Axton Maya. It's a video game. All right. Thank you, Seb. Okay, who are you flexing this week from Brett? Where's Brett from?
Toronto, Ontario, Canada.
Do they say A?
Yes.
I mean, it's kind of been suggested from time
Who
to
you
time.
flexing, A? Cooks, Woods, Brian Robinson, A?
I'm sorry. Thank you very much. I apologize. Thank you. What were the names again?
Cooks, Woods, Brian Robinson this week.
Cooks.
I agree.
All right. Well, how about a dynasty question? This is Al in his comfortable pants. I am new to dynasty and can't get my head around trade values. If I were to trade someone like A.J. Brown or T. Higgins for draft picks or current rookies, what should I expect to get back? It is a Superflex PPR league.
Oh, wow. I'd want multiple firsts for A.J. Brown. And I wouldn't be personal philosophy. I probably wouldn't be trading established young wide receivers for draft picks. It's highly unlikely those draft picks are going to turn into something better than the established star wide receivers. But multiple first round picks.
Let's hammer the point home. If you had A.J. Brown in a dynasty league and someone offered you Saquon Barkley straight up for him,
No.
that's what I thought you'd say. What if it was Saquon Barkley and 1 first-round pick?
Yes. If I'm... See, that's the tricky part is like I want Saquon if I'm contending. Maybe I could turn Saquon into another first-round pick.
Mm-hmm. You might.
People are canceling me because of my accent in the YouTube chat. Sorry.
I think they're
People
great.
from where?
I don't know. Big Bopper says cancel Adam.
Never.
That may not have anything to do with your accents. It might just
That's probably, yeah. I get like 5 of those a show.
delete.
Yeah. All right. Well, Andrews Pete, by the way, is week to week with a pec strain, starting guard for the New Orleans Saints.
A peak strain for Pete?
Pete, yep. Andrews peak strain. So we'll leave you with that. We will talk to you tomorrow on Fantasy Football Today. Thanks so much for watching, everybody, and listening. And I don't really know how to end the show, so I'm just going to hit the end.
Maybe you should do it in an accent.
I think I've done enough of those for today, Dave.
End the